Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, all honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Racha HaKodash. I want to give double honors to the elders and apostles on down of Great Millstone and the men, the four corners of the earth, pushing this likewise doctrine in truth and sincerity. It's your brother Yakal, back with another lesson. This lesson is going to be a continuation of my first lesson on the importance of prayer. Now we're going to go into not necessarily how you pray, but some things not to do that we do, we see every day, okay? So we're mainly going to be going into the covering of one's head. For men, you are not to cover your head during prayer, prophesying, teaching, reading the scriptures. For women, it's the opposite. You are commanded to cover your head while praying, prophesying, or teaching, which you only are to teach younger women and the children of the household, never men. We can go into that in another lesson. Okay, so starting this lesson out, remember, it's about covering versus no covering for the heads, all right, for men and women during prayer and prophesying. All right, we're going to start out with 1 Corinthians 11 and 13. But I would have you know that the head of every man is Christ, or Hamashiach. That's Yahweh Shai, our Savior. And the head of the woman is the man. And the head of Hamashiach, or Christ, is Yahweh, or God, our power. Okay? So with that, we've established the head, the hierarchy, the order of things. The scriptures say, let everything be done decently and in order. All right? So we have a hierarchy established. Okay? Now we have established that the head of man is Christ, okay? This is verse 4. Every man praying or prophesying, having his head covered, dishonoreth his head. All right, so going back to verse 3, the head of man is Hamashiach, or Christ, our Savior, Yahweh Shai. So if you pray or prophesy, you're reading these scriptures, teaching the scriptures, and you have your head covered, you are dishonoring not only your physical head, your body, but you're also dishonoring Yahweh Shai. Now, you think he takes that lightly? Probably not. Okay. Now we're going to go into verse 5. But every woman that prayeth or prophesieth with her head uncovered dishonoreth her head. And we established the woman's head is the man. So she's dishonoring herself and her husband. For that is even all as if she were shaven. So she's over there praying and prophesying with her head uncovered. She might as well have shaved her head, right? It's a disgrace. It's to dishonoreth, okay, to her head. Now, those scriptures are pretty plain as day, okay? Now, how people argue these scriptures, it boggles my mind. How it's there verbatim. There's no translation needed. There's no interpretation needed. It's black and white. And people, I get why. They have they've been deceived and they believe a lie, okay? And it comes down to vanity. It comes down to pride, first and foremost, which is a very, very effeminate spirit in a lot of these men in Israel. I see a lot of guys on TikTok, a lot of guys on YouTube, prophesying, praying, teaching the scriptures with a snapback on. They haven't done their research, number one, and more times than not, they've done the research, they've had it breaking down to them, and they still refuse to take the hat off. Something as small as that, they're risking their salvation, which it boggles my mind, but I get it. Some people are going to be blinded in the end. And the smallest stumbling block, it's a hat, a head covering. Now you see, I got a head wrap on here just to cover my ears. I'm in Colorado, it's cold. But you see my head, crown of my head is uncovered, as it always is. Now I get the whole thing, the excuse of, well, if we're out there on the highways and byways, or we're just out and about and it's below zero, or whatever the case may be, it's cold, that's no excuse for me. I've been to Mongolia, it was negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and all I needed was to cover my ears. Top of my head has always been fine. I have a little bit of hair there, it's thinning, but I've never been affected by the cold on the crown of my head. That's me personally. It may differ for some brothers, but I suggest then throw some Vaseline up there for some protection against the wind. But all in all, it ain't that bad, okay? We are walking this earth as a living sacrifice, okay? And if your head gets too cold, fucking suck it up, all right? All right, now we're going to go into the history of the hat, okay? Because the head covering, as far as the crown goes, was never a custom of the Israelites, okay? Never a custom of ours. This custom was brought to us by the heathens. Specifically, I'm going to go into during the time of the Maccabees, okay? And in this time, we're going to start at 2nd Maccabees chapter 4, and we're going to go to verse 7. So just in a nutshell, what's going on here, the Israelites, they're here in Jerusalem, but they're under Greek captivity. They're under the king Antiochus, or other pronounced Antiochus, called Epiphanes. He has taken the kingdom of Jerusalem, okay? But the Israelites at this time, they are still allowed to practice their laws and customs, okay? They're protected, but then that all changes, okay? So 2nd Maccabees chapter 4, verse 7, but after the death of Seleucus, when Antiochus or Antiochus called Epiphanes took the kingdom, that's of Jerusalem, Jason, the brother of Onias, labored underhand to be high priest. So Jason, he was Onias' brother. Onias is the high priest at this time. He's basically desiring to take that power, take that seat of high priest from his brother Onias. Verse 8, promising unto the king by intercession 360 talents of silver, and of another revenue 80 talents. So he's promising the king with this money. Verse 9, besides this, he promised to assign 150 more if he might have license to set him up a place for exercise, a gym, and for training up of the youth in the fashions of the heathen, and to write them of Jerusalem, the Israelites, by the name of Antiochians. So what Jason does, he undermines his brother Onias in order to gain that high priest seat. He goes to the king and he says, hey, I'm going to build for you in honor of you. If you give me this power, I'm going to build a gymnasium, which back then Greek customs, I believe the word for the place of exercise was gymnos, where we get the word gym from today. And I believe it means nudity or naked. You have to look that up, Salaki if I'm wrong. But the Greeks, what they did back then, they would set up these places of workout and exercise where they would be naked, men amongst men, women amongst women. It was heathen customs, okay? And they took these on, all right? Our people did. So he wanted him to give him license to set up a place for exercise, a gym, and for training up of the youth in fashions of the heathens. So this place would be a place to teach the Israelite, the young men, right, these heathen customs, and to write them of Jerusalem by the name of Antiochians. So then we call themselves Antiochians now, all right? Verse 10, which when the king had granted, so he allowed this, and he gave Jason that power, and he had gotten into his hand the rule, he forthwith brought his own nation to Greekish fashions. So with that power, he turned his people over to Greekish fashion, heathen customs. Verse 11, and the royal privileges granted of special favor to the Jews by the means of John, the father of Eupolemus, who went ambassador to Rome for amnesty and aid, he took away. So all that special favor when the Jews, the Israelites, were allowed to practice their customs, worship our God, Yahweh, they took it away. And putting down the governments which were according to the law. So our established laws, statutes and commandments that we use and we use to govern ourselves, it was all taken away. He brought up new customs against the law. Okay? And we go to verse 12. For he built gladly a place of exercise, a gym, under the tower itself. And he brought the chief young men under his subjection and made them wear a hat. Okay, made them wear a hat. This is a new customs against the law. This is one of many that they implemented. All right. Now, if you see it talked that he brought the chief young men, right? So these are the young men who have some power, some standing, popularity, I guess you can say, among the rest of the Israelites, in order to sway the opinions, to bring people over to the dark side, for lack of better words, okay? We can go to verse 13 as well. Now such was the height of Greek fashions during this time, and increase of heathenish manners, through the exceeding profaneness of Jason, that ungodly wretch and no high priest. Okay, he sold his people out for some fame, some money, right? The root of all evil being the love of money. And with that love of money comes power, okay? Now, so we went into the history of the hat, and let's see another example of how we know that the head coverings, that modern day head coverings we wear today, are heathen customs. Let's go into the number one example of do the opposite of. If these people are doing it, we do the opposite, and we know we're doing something right, okay? Now, the so-called Jewish small hat person today, right, what do? This is their custom, right? They walk around wearing this 24/7, okay? What's that called? A yarmulke, I believe. Now, let's see what they believe. I believe I pulled it up. All right, so this is the history, or this is why. I went to Google, why do the Jewish wear a yarmulke? Okay, and I read it. Jews wear a yarmulke, or a kippah, as a sign of reverence and humility, a constant reminder that God is above them, symbolizing awareness of God's presence and commitment to Jewish life. Now, if you ask me, that sounds like idolatry, number one. And number two, where the fuck is that in the scriptures? What did we just read in Corinthians? 1 Corinthians. We just read that you're not supposed to cover your head. All right, and they wear this thing 24/7. If they're not wearing that, they're wearing some other form of headgear that does cover their entire head. Let's just scroll down and see what else they got in here. Look at that. Look at that. They always got something. Like, what is this? Where is that in the Bible? Huh? These are God's chosen people. Look at this. This is God's chosen people. Now, these hats supposedly they cost around $5,000 a piece to make, right? And we know why they're wearing this shit, right? What does that look like? It's like a man with an afro, okay? They wear this fake shit. Where is that in the scriptures? Where is that in the laws, in the customs of our people? Nowhere. If we do the opposite of those people, you're on the right track. They do everything in opposition to the law, statutes, and commandments, okay? All right, now we're going to go into the modern day use. I'm sorry, Salakia. We're going to go into now what we actually wore as a people. Now, if you go into what we would wear as Israelite men, like I said, we did cover our ears. It will get cold out there, right? So we wore, I'm not for sure what the exact terminology is, but we wore turbans, or I believe mitris. But the fact is the crown of the head was always exposed, okay? As pertaining to 1 Corinthians 11, 3 through 5, okay, what we just read. But here's a mitri, or a head wrap, some of these men wearing, right? Crown of the head is exposed. The crown of the head's always exposed, okay? This was one of our customs, all right? As that's going off. Or he might have a turban on with the crown of his head showing. Right? But it's simple, and it's not rocket science. And here's some false depictions. You go to Google and you type in Israelite high priest. First of all, they're all going to be of the light skin complexion, which, don't get me wrong, some Israelite brothers are of the lighter complexion, okay? But these guys, they're all that. Look at this Edomite. With his head covered. Their head covered. All of these images depict an Israelite, a high priest, right? The ones who dealt directly with Yahweh for the Israelites. They all had their head coverage in these images, which is false depictions, okay? And now we're going to go into the modern day. Now, what do we do as Israelites? We turn everything into high fashion. We're the salt of the earth. We make everything better. We make everything cool. We set the trends. We set the tones for every modern day piece of fashion. Okay, that's just a fact. If you don't believe that, you fucking living under a rock and you're a fucking idiot. But for today, modern day, what do? We put our chief young men on pedestals and we give them caps. Okay, some examples of that. I myself, I played college football. I got a full scholarship. I had a called a signing day, right? For those who played sports, you have a signing day in high school your senior year where you sit down at a table and you got a bunch of different caps in front of you, ball caps with different schools on them that you're in front of the camera. So you're gonna say, I choose this school. You go ahead, you don your hat, you sign your contract. Everyone claps, goes wild. And that's just part of that custom again. So here's some images of course, these are Israelite men setting the tone for everybody else. The signing day was a beautiful thing for back in the world, right? It was a beautiful day for you and your family, your friends, everybody, right? Knowing which school you're gonna go to. It was an exciting time. Like I said, it's of the world. It was wicked, but we didn't know. Now you know, okay? And then we have another example of that, which you all might know. The NBA draft. I'm not so sure about the NFL draft. NBA draft, what do? They go up on that stage, shake the hand of the NBA commissioner, and what do? They get that hat, throw it on there, thumbs up to the camera, smiling, get that $1 million contract, right? And we're all happy and proud and cheering, having no idea where that custom came from. But now you know. And I'm gonna give you a personal example for me. And in my community, what I grew up in, so those of you who know me, I did serve in the military for 10 years. I was a Green Beret. I'll give you an image here. And you know how proud I was, my friends and family and everybody. Look at me and some of my buddies. Right, look at those hats we had on. So the Green Beret obviously represents Special Forces. The Maroon Beret represented airborne status. So the guys who jumped out of planes, they wore those berets, usually in the 82nd Airborne and some other units. But it was a proud thing. So you're walking around on military bases, or out in public too. The civilians know. They see you with that beanie on, and it represents a higher status than a civilian life, right? And people respect that. The uniform helped too, but that beret, that headgear you wore in the military, it did distinguish, just like medals or badges you would earn, it distinguished your level in that community. And it built a sense of pride, okay? And then one of the biggest ones that I took part in, this was a ceremony that we had. It was called the donning of the Green Beret, okay? And you can imagine the emotions you felt. So for me, it was literally 2.5 years of training to become a Green Beret. And this was the culmination ceremony. Right? It was a wicked ritual that we went through. And you'll see the video. Don your Green Beret. And we're all happy and proud. Put that thing on for the first time. And now you are officially a Green Beret. Yay. We were so happy, so proud. But knowing now what I know, shit was fucking wicked. It was vanity. It meant nothing. But what we read in the 2nd Maccabees, the 4th chapter, right? They took the chief young men and they put caps upon them, right? Everybody else younger than you, old, they saw and looked at you with admiration. Once again, developing pride, okay? So in a nutshell, don't cover your heads while you're praying and prophesying, okay? You're teaching these scriptures. Men, women, cover your heads, okay? It's not rocket science. If you see someone with their head covered, chances are, and they're teaching today, chances are they've heard these scriptures, they've heard these breakdowns, and they choose to ignore them, right? As the scriptures say, a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump. If they're off a little bit in their doctrine, the entire thing's flawed, okay? Run away, go to the men of GMS on down and the affiliate camps that teach the likewise doctrine. Start with GMS, and you can't go wrong, okay? All right, so with that, lesson's complete. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakha HaKodash. Shalom, Asher.